Hello everyone, welcome back to a new episode of How to Reach 2000. We're playing against a 1300 and in today's video let's do something different. I want to play e4. I haven't played e4 in a really long time and we get the Caro-Kann. I think I'm going to play the exchange. The idea is the exchange Caro-Kann is very similar to the London system. Let's play this, preventing bishop here. I should have played bishop to d3 first. That's what the theory is. I messed up already, but I think I'm gonna take. My idea is, yes, I don't have any center pawns, but this pawn could be a weakness in the future, and I could try to develop like this. And they take, so let's bring the queen out. We're probably gonna play bishop to d3, bishop to e3, knight here, and we're gonna castle soon. Let's play bishop to d3 because we might have some ideas over this side. If they castle, we can try to attack maybe, but personally I like castling kingside, so I'm not going to try to throw pawns at them. I'm going to go for a more positional game against this pawn, so I'm going to play knight to d2. My idea is I'm going to go to the b3 square and then try to go to the d4 square, and the square in front of the isolated pawn can be used for a knight. The knight is still very effective because there are no pawns that can kick the knight away, and the pawn is blockaded. So if they cannot push forwards and try to get rid of this pawn, this isolated queen's pawn is very lonely and it's a weakness for the endgame. So that's what I'm trying to go for. I have a nice structure. I have 2 pawn islands with 3 pawns each. They have 3 pawn islands and they have 2 pawns and 1 island. They have an isolated pawn and 3 pawns in 1 island. b6 makes sense. They're trying to put this bishop on the long diagonal. I don't see any threats straight away, so I'm gonna castle. But the problem for them is obviously they cannot play this very easily. I'm just gonna play knight to d4, and they're gonna have a hard time opening up the long diagonal. So I don't think bishop to b7 is a very optimal move. So b6 doesn't really make much sense. On the other hand, b6 does restrict my knight, so I cannot go forwards, but that was not my intention anyways. They play bishop to b7, so right now I'm playing against this pawn, and also I'm playing against this bishop. This bishop is very passive. I'm playing knight d4 straight away because I want to avoid ideas where they try to play this when this bishop is defended, so that's what I'm trying to do. They can try to put a knight in the center of the board. It's kind of annoying, but I'm not too worried about it. Okay, they go for this approach. They're trying to put pressure on my knight. I could try to pin this knight, and it looks very nice because, let's say if they take, then I can take with the pawn. This bishop is still garbage, and I'm going to try to damage their structure. We're going to end up in a pretty equal position. Like, material is going to be equal, but I'm going to have a better pawn structure on the king side, and I still have the nice and active lines. I'll also see some ideas because if we get to remove this knight, this bishop becomes a god. Like, we're putting pressure on that square, and can be quite annoying. So I feel like I want to play bishop to g5. My idea is if they take, we're getting an isolated pawn as well, but our pawn is like the opposite color of their bishop, so their bishop cannot target my pawn, and also I'm putting pressure on this knight. They're going to have a hard time now because they're going to get a damaged structure because I'm going to take their knight, and I'm going to put a rook on the c and the e file. Okay, our idea was always to take this, so let's take. And this is a huge mistake because now we have forced mate. Yes, we already have forced mate. Queen takes f6 was much better because then I have to trade queens to damage the structure. But in this case, they go for pawn take straight away, thinking that they're gonna, use the g file, but I'm the one who strikes first. You can see that this bishop is eyeing on that pawn. I can look for ways to add more pressure. For example, I can play queen here, or I can play queen here. And both of those moves are completely winning. The more winning move is queen to f5, and they don't really have much to prevent checkmate. I'm threatening queen to h7, which is literally unstoppable. Okay, now that they notice that they're losing, they offered me a draw. So let's play queen to f5, and this checkmate is unstoppable. So you can see how it's very dangerous with the bishop on the d3 square, and with the knight no longer on the f6 square defending the king, it's very dangerous. You have to calculate before you take too quickly. G takes f6 was played in 0.1 seconds, so it was essentially pre-moved. I can just play queen to h7 and it's checkmate. I played at 93.1 accuracy and my opponent played at 75.0 accuracy. In this game I decided to play e4 rather than d4. I just wanted to try a different opening. Trying to make up things along the way. Not recommended, but it's okay. I take because I want to create an isolated pawn for the black position. Now I trade pieces, so that if we trade all of the pieces and if we are only left with king and king, with 6 pawns each, then white is going to be slightly better because white has a superior pawn structure compared to the black position because they have a weakness on d5. If you have an isolated pawn, then you should try to play around the pawn. So you should try to activate your pieces and go for some sort of an attack, or at least try to push this pawn and trade it off for another pawn and try to create more open lines. Black did have the chance to push several times in this game, but they never really went for it because it might have been premature. b6 is not a great move because if the bishop goes to b7, they're not really opening up this diagonal because this pawn on d5 can be blockaded by my knight, and there are no pawns that can kick out my knight from this square so that they can eventually push. So after they played bishop to b7, I put my knight in the center, and they go for this, trying to spook me into moving my knight, but I decided I would play bishop to g5, and I saw the fact that after takes they had to go for the queen trade. If they didn't go for the queen trade, I had ideas of this and trying to checkmate. They go for this exchange, and as you can see, my advantage has kind of ballooned to plus 1.3. They play king to h8. The idea is after I take, they can try to open up the g file and try to attack me. But that's only like a one-sided way of thinking. They should be looking at how I can attack them as well. So after this, which is what I wanted to do the whole time, they went with this, which is a huge mistake because I have checkmate ensue. My opponent pre-moved this, thinking that they should keep the queens on the board so that they can potentially try to attack and use the g file to attack me. But that was not good enough because I just had this and it's just unstoppable checkmate. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video.